Welcome everybody to another episode of the Works Plus TechTalk Podcast. Today we have a very interesting guest. Everyone, welcome to us, Mark van Leeuwen. Mark?
Glad to be here. Well, that's I'm not sure about that, but I'm glad to be here.
I was going to suggest that was very presumptuous. We'll actually do a second. We'll ask you again at the end. See how you felt.
No, happy to be here.
Terrific. Well, it's a real pleasure to have you here. We've known each other for quite some time. I'm tipping our guests, most of them probably don't know who you are at all. Who's Mark van Leeuwen?
I have actually known you your whole life, Josh. I recall when you were born. I remember, and I hadn't thought of that until now, but I remember holding you as a baby in Box Hill. And Josh was always the baby brother.
Wow, it's amazing. I'm not calling you, I'm not saying, welcome, Uncle Mark.
No.
We're not related though, right?
And I actually kind of feel like we're all the same age, except Tim, I feel, is older than all of us, because even listening to his podcast yesterday, I thought he's a boomer that was born 10 years too early. He's the father figure. But, no, I did grow up with all of the Van der Veens. Our parents were good friends, same school, same church. It was, very closely tied to the Van der Veens growing up, which was, everything from sailing down at Black Rock to helping, move out of one of Harry's factories at 10 o'clock at night, when Dad's like, we're going to help Harry move. I'm like, at 10 o'clock at night? It's like, it's kind of a tax thing. It's an ATO thing. And I'm like, okay, no worries.
I don't even know that story.
No.
And we've already had Harry here and that never came up.
It was in a little yellow Mazda,
Yep.
Yep.
The old Delcraft truck.
Yeah. When he was working with Hands, I think he had a picture framing factory and we were moving everything out because something had gone sideways and we were just protecting a few assets. Now
that is one way to start off a podcast. You know how deep Mark is invested.
I'm just here talking to you.
And you're still here.
It's to be edited out. Yeah, well, I came back. I kind of watched the growth of ProGrind from the beginning. It was not overly, it didn't really excite me. I was, I had a little bit of experience in construction, just working with Dad and Bram, where I had a construction business, but it was certainly not where, I didn't think that was a great place to be.
ProGrind?
No, just working, just working hard. I kind of went for a better life. Like I thought I'd go and live somewhere, Anyway, I worked overseas for 10 years and ended up at ProGrind in a gap, waiting for a visa to get approved. So 2004, 6 weeks with you. And even, I was recalling with Hayden before this, Hayden was here in 2004 and I did 6 weeks while I was waiting for a visa and did a 20-hour day on the grinder with him. Do you remember that? You came out to the job, which was Ferntree Gully somewhere or off Burwood Highway.
Yeah, right.
And all prep grinding. I did a tiny stint with Pro Lift in the first week.
Yeah, right.
Then Chris found out and he's like, he's ours. So I just got... Apparently, I could just get taken from one wing to another.
Yep.
Remember, Willie wasn't very happy. Theo wasn't very happy. But anyway, ended up with Chris and really got thrown in the deep end. Back then it was just, okay, now I'll drop you off at a swimming pool and you can just get rid of the whole membrane.
It's the only end we had.
And I remember towards the end of that 6 weeks, you invited me to stay. And you said, you could really make good money. And I remember thinking, I can't get out of here quick enough.
And where did you go to?
To Utah. So I was working in a ski resort at Deer Valley. And I did 10 years there. And then
they released you.
9 years, 9 winters, up until November 2008, I came back and came and had lunch with Harry one day, introduced him to my partner, and he said, when are you coming back to ProGrind? And I said, I've got plans for this year, but, we can look at it in the future. And a couple of weeks later, one of our visas fell through back to the US. So it's like kind of at a loose end. And having just come back from India with a backpack, it was really at a loose end. I did not plan to be stranded in Australia and unemployed. So I called Harry back. He called Ben van der Veen, who was running ProGrind at that time. I think Ben called Chaka and Tim and yourself and said to come down for an interview and bring your work boots. So I was on the tools, that day. So January 2009. Yeah.
Wow.
It was back then it was all employees on the tools, and it was kind of a flat rate of pay for everyone. But I soon learned that there was a part of the model was once you became a contractor, after a minimum of 3 months, you could get bonuses and just based on production.
Yep.
So I was like, sign me up for that very quickly. I kind of wanted an accelerated course, which Ben wasn't having, but 3 months was the minimum.
Yep.
And then I ended up, I did at one point, because Ben was very competitive and he was, talking himself up for a running race around Leeuwen Lake. I said, well, if I win that, I can be a contractor after 2 months. And he's like, oh, wait a minute. So I think he knew he was going to lose.
Uh-huh.
And then, I did a couple of residential jobs. Went and did my first commercial job in Thomas Duck's Surrey Hills, New South Wales. And Scott, who was the project manager at the time, gave me the worst job that he could. It was like he kept the best ones for himself. Gave me that one, which I was fine with whatever I was going to walk into. But it was a, PT slabs, level 1, no access. And he sent me with Brenton, which, it was a good challenge. It was with Darren Young from Inten, was the site manager. Must have made a good enough impression because he really wanted us to come back and do more jobs for him in the years to come. He did ask me at one point how long I'd been with ProGrind, which was not very long, but I said, I started in 2004, which was true, but I'd been gone for 9 years too. It was, so the journey kind of started there. I was on the tools until November 2011. And I think ProGrind did its best job trying to burn us out. We were working, it seems not that bad, but at least 70 or 80 hours a week. And about 7 months of the last year that I was on the tools was interstate.
Yeah, right.
So it was just going from job to job. We were all in teams of 2. I was with, and all of those guys, or many of them, are still working for a ProGrind in the subcontracting model.
Yeah, okay.
I was thinking about it before. 2009, I went on a fishing trip. It was actually my Bucks night, and Danny Gleeson organised a Bucks night, which was a fishing trip down in Portland. And on that boat, there was Brendan Exner, who became Osgrind, and Travis Fink. There was PCS. There was Tim Charlton.
Supergrind.
All those guys have stayed in the industry, either working with us or closely with us, or works customers. That's where it began.
So you're all in the same boat back then, and you're
Pretty
on
much on the
boat.
same boat now. Even a few that weren't quite on the boat yet because they just hadn't arrived, like Kurt, who came a little bit later.
Yeah.
I was already had moved into the project management role when Kurt arrived.
That's right.
I really enjoyed. I didn't enjoy breaking him, but I enjoyed the journey of watching him grow through it.
Yeah.
He was. He arrived just at the beginning of the Masters rollout.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a lot of meters under the grinder. Yeah. And then, yeah.
And so you're not on the tools today. What is your actual role in ProGrind?
So National Operations and Project Manager.
What does that look like?
Well, mostly it looks like quality control and scheduling projects, managing projects from start to finish. So allocating the resources for it, scheduling it, working with the builder, and getting it delivered. Very short version.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Protecting, the subcontractor, protecting ProGrind, and delivering for the client.
Okay.
So it's usually just a balancing act between all of those moving parts, and it's, you've kind of got to look after everyone, look after ProGrind, look after the customer, and look after the subcontractor, and it's not always, it requires different, things to get that done. Like. If anything ever goes wrong, we've done something wrong.
Yeah.
Like we either haven't protected ourselves well enough, or we haven't vetted the contract well enough, or we haven't managed the site conditions well enough. There's a lot of things that, they appear to be out of your control, but you've kind of got to try to bring them back into your control. So that is, it's we have a lot of national customers, so it's looking after them around the country and in New Zealand.
How many projects do you have running at the moment? Just to give us an idea.
Probably about 12. Yeah.
12 today?
Yeah.
Running nationally?
Yeah. Well, I don't look after WA anymore.
Okay.
I used to, but Chris van der Veen is now the WA operations manager. He... I used to be covering WA, but I was stretched thin.
It's a long drive, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's, I mean, when I started with it, I was stretched very thin from, I did it for 7 years on my own, from 2011 to 2007. It was really just Ben van der Veen and I. Ben van der Veen was in sales and I was in delivery.
Yep.
And, he didn't need any help with sales. I didn't feel like I needed any help with delivery.
Sure.
And it was almost... And I never knew whether the work was going to continue to come.
Yep.
So I just didn't want to go top heavy.
Yep.
And then suddenly have too many mouths to feed. But the work just kept coming. So I think I was getting close to, we kept growing. So then Chris started stepping in over in WA, and we got Kath Kingswell in November 2018. So,
2018, so 6 years ago, just about.
Yes, yeah. Yep, coming up to 7 years in November. Yeah.
Wow. Far out.
Yeah, a lot of good times. I mean, you would remember a lot of them. I mean, I remember when we had employees and we had too much work on, you and Tim and I spent New Year's Eve together doing IGA Mount Tambourine in 2013.
What a lovely place to be. On New Year's Eve.
Yeah, and with Tim, it was like, I think I had an iced coffee, Big M for New Year's Eve and a meat pie.
That's a pretty big celebration in Tim's book. So that was Tim going hard that night. Yeah. And
it honestly was really good. I had not worked with you guys on the tools before. And we, remember Tim went 2 days ahead of us. couple of days ahead of us. And he was actually taking over from one of the employees who was having a lot of trouble getting through the slab. And I don't remember the exact troubles, but there were a lot of complaints coming back.
Yep.
Tim went up by himself on a BK. I arrived. The whole floor had been first cut to full exposure. There must have been 14 full pallets of dust bags. He was in the middle of second cut. Had his iced coffee, and I'm like, this is the Tim that I've heard about. Like, these are, I straight away asked what kind of hours he was working, and they were just lazy 12s. Like, it was just 6 till 6.
Only working half days.
Yeah. Just all nicely vacuumed, and it was good. Not that that's where anyone wanted to spend New Year's Eve, but it was good. I think even Harry came up for a little bit.
Yeah, he I remember he came up to bring all the equipment back.
Yeah. Minus a couple of ramps.
At least one anyway.
Yeah, at least one. Yeah. It was, but that was it was not long after that, because it would have been around 2015 that we started looking at moving to the subcontractor model.
Yep.
Just so we didn't have to work New Year's Eve.
And have you had a nice coffee since, though?
Yeah. Yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah, I get told off for it now because of the sugar content. But, no, it was, and that transition to the subcontracting model was I found it a little unnerving to begin with.
Yeah, why is that?
Well, I thought, what if they mutiny on me, and then I've got no one to deliver our projects.
Yeah, certainly.
So I kept a couple of employees, but that was just that safety net. Eventually I got to rip that off. And then looking at our subcontracting, our main subcontractors are all, 90% of them are ex-ProGrind employees.
Yeah, hard to believe.
So it's... they know what the expectations are. Good. They are, one of the things I heard at Deer Valley when I was there, the CEO was asked us who was the most powerful person in the company. And we thought, nice to bring himself up, but it was the frontline workers, because they have the contact with the customer all the time. So it's the people that are on the coalface, which really rung true for me. And I feel the same way about our contractors. Like, they are the ones that grow the business. They're the ones that maintain our name. They're the ones that deliver the quality. They're the ones that are there on time, doing it, delivering it on time. So it's really important to have that, good team that you can rely on around the country. And that really became really apparent during COVID, when I couldn't travel interstate. So I was, really relying on...
So I imagine that would have been difficult if you didn't have a subcontractor model.
Oh, it would have been toast.
Yeah, because you wouldn't have been able to travel, but...
It would have been near on impossible, actually. I mean, we continue to operate everywhere, though we were considered an essential service. So we would have been able to probably cross borders as essential workers, because you really need your polished concrete.
It's essential.
It's essential. Yeah. So, but we didn't travel that much. We had to. New South Wales had its own terrible restrictions,
because you live in Melbourne, you can say that.
Well, they had their own type of restrictions, where we'd be doing a Woolies refurb in Rouse Hill, and our workers, our subcontractors, couldn't get there because they were locked down in their own area. So as always, the program doesn't change.
Yep.
Still, and Victoria had its own horrible, with social distancing restrictions. We had site sheds under the floor that we were on that had to run double lunch shifts and double breaks and we weren't allowed to work above them. So we'd have like a 3-hour day.
Oh, far out.
Because of the noise.
Yep.
So, yeah, anyway.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you about some of the I guess some of the biggest challenges to the subcontractor model. I mean, I think most of the people listening to the podcast are either working for somebody themselves as an employee, or they are a sole operator, which is the most common model that we see here in Australia. The subcontractor model is not really a big thing in the grinding and polishing industry. My own understanding of that is really it's a skills-based thing. My expectation is trying to deliver on what you guys deliver every day, the consistency nationally and all that sort of stuff. I imagine that's going to be pretty hard to do, maintain that continuity with a workforce that you're utilising that doesn't even have a trade background. In so far as that there's no apprenticeship, how do you... I mean, looking from the outside in, or looking to build a subcontractor network, I mean, I would imagine that's probably the hardest part.
And that was one of the difficult sell, not a difficult sell, but I remember we had this conversation with Dan Murphy's when we first were switching over, and they were concerned about the subcontractor model, and they were concerned about maintaining quality.
Yep.
They were happy with the quality when they were all our employees because they knew it was our guys.
Yep.
It didn't take long to put, measurables in place that we could monitor from either, all the correct tooling being used, all the correct chemicals, right, sealer, like places where people might take shortcuts, they weren't really an option. But then, the quality came down more to removing scratches and, all the things that we struggled with ourselves on the tools, which I kind of knew at the time, but it was good that Tim brought it up in his podcast because I listened to it yesterday.
Right.
That, we were the guinea pigs. We were the ones that really got to find out that those grouting diamonds didn't work, or we really got to find out that those 50 resins didn't work.
Would have been nice to have had another set on site though, wouldn't it? Of something else?
Well, we were always, something else. Yeah, we were always given a lot of tooling. Like, it wasn't for a lack of, giving us the resources. They just weren't quite the right ones.
Yeah.
When I think about, the time frame it takes to deliver a project now, it hasn't really changed that much in terms of, we'd always work on a rate of delivery of like 500 metres a week. I think the difference is we were throwing 80 hours at it, and now, they're doing it in 50.
No, it's just not
so,
right.
Another 5 years and we'll be going home with the Sparkies. We'll be leaving at 3:30. But the process has gotten quicker. We seem to be working shorter, There's still, everyone's working hard, but with EBA rates and, we can't be doing like 80-hour working weeks anymore.
Yeah, I can imagine that could be a problem.
And it's a different generation, seems to be a little bit.
By different generation, what do you mean?
Well, they're not boomers, they're not World War II. They just don't. We used to work some very unreasonable hours. And especially because we were travelling, we didn't have a life interstate anyway.
That's right.
So there was no we were motivated to do nothing but work.
Yeah, when it gets done.
The sooner we got the job done, the sooner we thought we were going home. I don't know if it was strategic, but it was often on the drive home that we were redirected to another job. Yeah, I got married in Argentina I should remember, my anniversary's tomorrow. That'll be August the 8th, 2010.
Yep.
And I got a phone call from Harry, or maybe Harry. Harry came over for the wedding.
That's right, he did.
And I don't know, he might have just called my dad, who was at the wedding, and suggested that I come home early from my honeymoon. And I'm like, I'm not I'm not even taking that phone call. Like, you've got to be joking. And it was to go and do 2 JB Hi-Fis over in WA, Bunbury, and throw in a beacon lighting on my way home. And we always worked in teams of 2, but I'm like, who am I going with? You have to do these ones on your own. We're very stretched right now. And it was that being stretched and burning out employees that led to the subcontracting model. And I'm very glad we went that way.
Hang on, when you say you're very glad you went that way, are you talking about you're glad you went the subcontractor model, or
Yes.
you're glad that you left your honeymoon early?
No, there was no leaving the honeymoon early, because I took a bunch of friends with me on the honeymoon.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so it was
I was going to ask you how your second marriage was going.
Well, that was a part of getting off the tools.
Yep.
Because being away for 7 months, Marty had already gone to work at Hotham for a season.
Yeah.
And you actually called me when this position came up. I don't remember this, but Marty remembers it, to see if I was interested in this project management role. And I was on the fence, because I actually enjoyed being on the tools. And I could see all the headaches that project management had. And I'm like, you know what, I don't really need to be dealing with that.
Yeah.
Marty was then going to go and work in Japan. And I could see this marriage is going to struggle. So it wasn't really my decision to move into this role. It was more, it was better for everyone. I remember my mother telling me, a little aside, she asked me, what school are the kids going to go to, private or, public? And I'm like, I don't know, we'll have to talk about it. And she said, yeah, but what does Marty want? I'm like, well, we'll make that decision, together. Or I said, did Dad make those decisions? Isn't he the head of the house? And Marty's like, and Mum's like, the father is the head of the house, but the mother is the neck, and the neck decides which way the head turns. So you should just find out what she wants.
Good advice.
And I remember that when she was saying, I'd like you to be in Melbourne, because I didn't marry a paycheck.
Yep.
And we hadn't started a family yet. And the travelling thing, it was burning me out, and it was burning everyone else out. And we had a very high turnover of employees.
Yeah, we did.
It was a revolving door. If we'd got 3 months out of someone, which is not enough, because that's just the time it takes to train them up.
Yeah. Well, I've done the maths, and it actually turns out that we've had every single male between the age of 38 and 42 working for ProGrind at some time.
Yeah, I remember doing a lot of interviews. There was a point where I was like, I don't even want to do the interview, just come and start working, because I'm spending more time interviewing than I am
actually getting any work done.
tools.
Well, actually, I do remember when you came up for consideration for the role, and I was the only one who thought that was a good idea, and I suggested.
I didn't know. Oh, this is all news to me.
Well, there you go. See, the whole thing about a podcast is finding out new things about each other, and like I said to you, before, I'm not going to give you any questions beforehand, because the surprises are fun for the listeners. Mark, why are you kicking me under the table?
No.
I thought, it'd be great to get you in for an interview. I thought you were suited to the role. Been in the business for a long time, had obviously seen a lot. I thought you had the skills to do it too. I knew that you were resistant to doing it, because you were sort of comfortable doing what you were doing. And we were all surprised when you came in, that when you came in and we actually did an interview with you, and how clear it was that you were like hand in glove for the job. It was like, oh, wow, that almost didn't happen. And I guess the comparison to the other person who thought they were going to get the job, just the day and night, it was really interesting, and that was, because of the interview that we had. We obviously had conversations about things that we'd never talked about before, because we'd never been looking at employing you for, well, actually never. Did we ever interview you for a job? No. prior to that?
No.
You just came and worked, right?
Yeah.
And so we actually found out about all of your skills, formal skills is what I'm referring to, and some of your history, and realised that, gosh, this is actually Mark's a real great candidate for this role. And guess what? He's still here.
Yeah, right. I did not know. I'm going to have a talk to Ben and Tim and find out where their resistance was. Yeah, I mean, I didn't know that you were the one that. I mean, I can honestly, I can actually see why you would see that and they wouldn't, because you saw me more than they did. I mean, you came up to Innisfail, I think, with Steve Exner when one of the machines broke down. And
oh, yeah.
I remember you came to Dan Murphy's Coomera when Tim and I were there. I think you slept in the car because you didn't want to waste the money on accommodation.
There you go. I'm still doing that today.
Less so than Tim. Tim was the most frugal person I think I've ever met. You know.
No. He buys the big iced coffees.
Well, do you know, I don't know if this made an impression on me with Tim when I started at ProGrind and he'd just come back from overseas, and this is, you know, you guys, we were passing in the corridor occasionally and he was riding up the street on his push bike to go and get a meat pie. Because I asked him I was wondering why he took the tomato sauce bottle with him. And he said, I'm not spending 30 cents on a sachet of sauce. That is just ridiculous. And I'm like, wow. Like that is a new level of tight.
Riding his bicycle to the shop, saving money on fuel, and bringing his own tomato sauce.
Yeah.
So his last name is Dutch.
I almost started feeling guilty about having accommodation interstate. Like, should we be sleeping in the van?
Should we be sleeping at all?
Yeah, well, I didn't realise the extent to which you guys had been working in those early days. I thought they were just long days, not what Chris said the other day in his podcast.
Yeah, they were horrible.
Like, that's, you can only do that when you're 16 or 20.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, when I did that 6-week stint and I did a 20-hour day with Hayden, I slept on site. Like, I just decided to lie down on the dust bags because I thought I'm going to get 2 hours less sleep if I drive home.
Silicon nap.
He was living closer, so he... you can see why I ran away.
Yeah, certainly.
Do you remember those times? You remember?
Oh, I wish I could say they were erased from my memory, but they're burnt into my memory.
I actually might have lost a few. I had to really think about them this morning. I also I took the AstraZeneca, and I think my memory's sort of my memory's going on.
Well, that's known as the A to Z, so you would have lost all memories A to Z.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, no, it's been a wonderful journey. I mean, I would have left. I mean, it's...
That's pretty gnarly, though, like looking back on it. It's pretty gnarly what you were doing from a work perspective. That's just working, man. It's not your life. It's just a form of employment. Some other people are just going to work 9 to 5. They're not doing any of this stuff. Even today, what you do is it's a big juggling act.
I think a part of it was I felt it was karma for having lived 10 good years. It was like I had the feast, and now I've got to pay for it. Like, honestly, I was like setting up a family. I'm like, I was living like a Groundhog Day, like a great one. And it wasn't until, getting close to 40 that I'm like, I probably should not be living this life. But
it's probably the right way because, most of us work all of our youth away so that we have, the time and the money to do it in our 80s when we don't have the physical, prowess to do it anymore. So I think you did the right
I'm
route.
very happy with that, time. Like, it's great. And be good to have both at the same time. But I was really happy to, once you change your mindset, I was happy to knuckle down and like just, okay, now I'm here to work. Like, which I did work previously, but it was, yeah. So, and, it's just, I often find you stay for the people that you're working with. So I really did enjoy working with everyone. Like all the contractors are all great. And I found ProGrind always had a great culture, like very supportive, very loose in some, like in terms of happy to innovate all the time and happy to try things. And, there's a few mavericks around that in the family, which sometimes they fly a little close to the sun, but it's kind of, but it's good. And I love working with Chris and having Works as that sister company.
I'm glad you dropped that in there. Just slip that in there.
The contractor model
would
not have been as good. I mean, I say not as good because 80% of our subcontractors are former Works employees, but the ones that we have, like Freestyle Floors, and they came directly from Works.
Do you remember what their first job was?
Yeah, Woolworths Marrickville.
Do you know how they got do you remember how they got the recommendation and what their skill set was prior?
They were carpet layers. No,
they had one grinding machine, and you needed a repair done.
What?
Yeah, you needed a repair done. I think it was actually at a JB Hi-Fi. You needed a repair done, and I suggested, well, Corey and Mel, they're floor layers. They work with these repair type products, and they've just been to one of our seminars, Mark. I think they'll be able to do the job. It was like 2 nights of repair work using, some cementitious repair products, which I thought, that would be a good resource. It wasn't very far away from where they were, where they were situated. And I remember hearing like weeks later that they were going to be doing this big job, and I just went, no, I don't think this is a good idea.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And look at them today.
But they were great from the get-go.
Yeah.
And if you think I wasn't nervous, they were working on their first job in a trading Woolworths supermarket. You think I want to be getting dust complaints the next day or anything? I think I stayed up there for the first stage, and they were, and they've been awesome. Even Milan, Concrete Tech 1 from Gregory Hill's Woolworths. He did 3 Woolworths stores, and I was happy to hear him, and surprised to hear him say in his podcast that the best floor he ever did was the first one he did for us. I'm like, all right, well, I'm glad we didn't look at your earlier work.
Apparently he made money on the last 2.
Well, you know why he didn't make it on the first one? Because he went overseas. He went on holidays, and then he also, he did well. Oh, he did all right on the trading floor, but then the mall area and the liquor store were just a nightmare, and that was just when he wasn't there.
Yeah,
and that's when you have employees that, stand behind the machine and wait for the scissor lift to move, rather than making phone calls.
Yeah.
But I was a bit sad to see that business move up north, and I'm glad you got him.
Yeah.
But but they're all good, and that's the other thing I love about the subcontracting model is they're owner operators. Like, they are invested. Like, they're, if you talk about them being artists, they put their heart and soul into the floor mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially the ones that we've kept forever.
I see that there's some challenges here, however. I mean, where the subcontractors come from, and like I said, most of the model in Australia is we've got owner-operators. If they're not owner-operators, they typically have a very small team, and they're doing often a lot of projects under 500 square metres is their bread and butter. And then we're going, hey, Mark, you need additional skills and capacity in this area. You talked to us about it, it's like, okay, these are some guys that I think fit your requirements, and we make the introduction, and then they go from doing all these small jobs to having to deliver big jobs with tight time frames. It's a big change of pace and expectation and capacity. What are some of the challenges for you and for the subcontractors when they go from that, what their current pace is, to the high volume pace that they have to operate at in the sphere that you work?
Honestly, I have not had a problem with productivity rates. We supply the machinery, the twin head grinders, that already doubles your capacity to deliver. The only real issues I've ever had are with quality. And I don't tend to find that they are teething problems. They're problems that don't go away. Just like if you have an employee, it's very hard to, the culture and the practices and how they deliver floors is already kind of set.
Yep.
You can tinker with them, but reshaping is often just doesn't end up being the best fit.
Yep. Right.
I've had a couple of those go sideways when I've been overseas, and I've had it's had to be handled by I've had Kurt go in, do training. I've had, but the long term doesn't work. So on the flip side, I love subcontractors that come out of the residential space because they are used to delivering such good quality work, and then it's just, you've almost got to pull it back and say, we can't be delivering 100 metres, a week. We need to do 500 metres, and almost, going in the opposite direction. Which I think is, I do like when they operate in both environments, because they're used to delivering good quality work. Most of our guys we try to feed continuously, so those that are doing, like our overflow capacity, they're often doing residential. Don't have an issue with the quality with them.
Okay. How many square metres are you guys delivering annually, would you say?
About 200,000.
200,000?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's, we just go by the numbers. Yeah.
And 200,000 I'm assuming that's mostly exposed and mid-gloss, high gloss? What's the average?
It's really been 90% decorative high gloss.
Right.
Up until recently, there's a bit of a shift in the market, moving towards, matte P3.
Right.
Like it's...
for those who don't know what P3 is, what is P3?
Just a change in the slip rating requirement, and not even a change in the requirement, but just, I don't know how, it's just become something that people want now, just to avoid any litigation. It's just getting thrown on specifications, and it can be thrown on with like decorative high gloss polished concrete P3.
Oh, right.
You just put a P3. A lot of these specifications just pull all different kinds of things together, and they just throw in a P3.
Right.
So there's been a lot of R&D, and it's still continuing. But decorative, medium exposure, mid-level gloss, high-level gloss. That's still where the majority of our work is. Surface polishing is a very small percentage.
I would imagine. So that suggests you're probably hanging out in a lot of the retail space, doing that.
90%. 90% retail.
90% retail. Any idea what quantity of dust you're disposing of every year with 200,000 square metres?
Well, I know we do like between 800 and 1,200 bags on a supermarket, which are about 40 kilograms each. We're getting rid of a lot of tonnage, which, it's great. I mean, it has not been, despite, everything that's in the media about silica and it just causing all these problems, I honestly have not encountered these problems on our sites. If we're following our protocols, and we haven't had an issue. We've had air monitoring done on sites on numerous occasions. We always come in well below the requirements. We are we are actually taking a little bit more control of the silica waste removal because builders are finding it harder and harder to dispose of.
Yeah, right.
So it's something, it'll be a growth area for us, and one that I welcome that, because if we're dealing with it, then it's not going to be a problem. When I go to sites and I find the builders using it as landfill or they're just stockpiling it in a paddock and they haven't decided what to do with it yet, even though the dust bags don't have our name written on them, the painter didn't put them there. So, I mean, it is, we've been doing some good work with waste removal lately, but...
So that's a big. I would imagine that's a big part of what you guys are doing at the moment. If you're generating that much dust in the first place, being innovative in that space is probably going to be paying dividends for you guys. At least you're leading in that space anyhow, because I don't really see anyone doing a lot of.
Yeah, I mean it doesn't take much to suggest to a client or a builder that we take care of it. And when you explain why, they're pretty quick to agree.
Yeah, right.
Which is because it's can be a dirty word, like especially in a multi-story building, we will take it away. We'll take.
Like to have a bit more control over it, ensure that everything's done properly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because the moment it's not in your control and it's a dust bag sitting on a pallet and someone drives into it with a forklift or a scissor and then it's on the floor and it's then it's becomes a work safe issue.
Yeah,
like that's not what we want.
No, I could imagine.
So
what are some of the I guess some of the tools or the attitudes that you've discovered or adopted along the way that you've found practical in getting through your career at ProGrind? I mean, we've been through a lot of different phases. You described you said there weren't any pains, but there were some, of having the employee model, the subcontractor model, and going from, where we were at with single machines to twin head grinders and that sort of stuff. There's actually been a lot of change in the industry, a lot of education and a lot of having to convince people that, this is the way that we need to do things. You've done a lot of, had to lead the market a lot. What were some of the tools or the attitudes that you've had to adopt or learn along the way?
Well, from a literal tooling perspective, there was quite a steep learning curve. When I look back at what we were doing, the Maya Docklands building or multi-story, thousands of meters, and leaving like a thick blanket of densifier on the floor to then spend the next, so there was definitely, I feel like I was in the middle of the worst of it, in terms of,
and made it through,
learning how to remove a 120 grit scratch and then even, leaving scratches filled with densifier to see them 6 months later. And the tooling has gotten so much better now, because I'm just not seeing the issues that we used to have. obviously it's still, you still need to read the floor and you need to select the right tooling. You need to apply the correct amount of chemicals at the right stage. But it's, I don't know if it's honestly a lot easier. It's so much easier. Oh, it's so much. But it is a lot easier.
Yeah.
I mean, the things that we used to deal with, like how to get the colour on the edges the same and all that. And I know we had a manual, but it was a lot of trial and error, and it was a lot of working it out as we went along and seeing different people with different processes. Same process, but there's so much tweaking involved in how you use a tool. In terms of attitude, I just like not letting molehills become mountainous. There's always been, there's always a way through. There's always an answer. It's just, and being respectful of other people, like of the builder, understanding it from the builder's perspective, the client's perspective, because they're not the same, or often not the same. Seeing, and the subcontractor, like it's very much it's a collaborative effort. We're all here to just build a building, and everyone thinks their job's the most important, which it's fine, but we've all got to work together. So often it's just being a voice of reason in the middle, and hoping you've got, you do surround yourself with like-minded people, but you don't always get to choose, how a site is being run. But I find that if all builders, they're all ultimately reasonable. They're all people. They're just people trying to do their job. If you look like you're a part of the problem, it's not going to be good for you. But if you're part of the solution, they really work with you. And we also, when you bring 5 tons of equipment, like people stay out of your way. Like we have a big footprint. Like, I don't know if I, see the past with rose-coloured glasses, but there's no problem that's really ever that bad. I mean, we have problems like, when we've, Coles Tarneet just before handover, finding out the whole floor was filled with a contaminated aggregate that was weak and started collapsing under pressure. That's a big problem on 2,500 metres to find out the week of handover. So there's problems. Yeah. There's always problems. Problems with, it's usually, it's concrete related, or it's site conditions, or it's handover dates. You control what you can, and we never have callbacks for defects, which I really love polished concrete for that reason. I mean, the resilience of the product just does not cease to amaze me. We will finish a job at the beginning of a fit-out program on a multi-storey building, and I'm like, this floor will be destroyed. Put it in my rearview mirror, go and have a look at it when it's trading, and it's like it was the day we left it. Yeah. Man, how many floors, what flooring option can you use that will do that? There isn't one. You'd be replacing 30% of the vinyl tiles, or you'd be, very resilient floor. It's a product that you can just blend into itself. It's easy to deliver something good, when you believe in it. Yeah. And it works. I can't say the same for any other floor finish. Can't say the same for coatings, epoxies, polished concrete. It's a great product.
And you're not even in sales?
No, I don't want to be. I remember Kurt and I were looking at we did a target in Chadstone. And so many of these builds are they have the reverse build, where they do the floor first and the roof last. So the place is leaking. You come in the morning and there'd be 300 metres of water on the floor. And a couple of times we redid a job that was flooded. Perth did it actually up in Queensland. The whole town was flooded. And
Townsville, wasn't it?
Townsville, yeah. And they, it was a massive insurance job. And Kurt called me and he's like, I'm not finding much wrong with this floor. Like it's sat under floodwaters and it's still holding up. Which, yeah.
Anything else? Anything else at all would have been a wash, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They threw out all the refridge cases. They had to redo all the walls. Floor was pretty good. Was really good.
Well, it sounds like you're a big advocate for it.
Yeah, I am. I used to be concerned in the early days when I started at ProGrind. For the first few years, people would be asking me, is this like a flavour of the month thing that's going to go away? Are you worried? And well, it wasn't until you just asked me. But and it was something on my mind. I was like, cork floors, things come and go. But I do, and I was seeing bad quality work out there when we were doing only a small percentage of, the Woolworths, and there were others being done by others. And I'm like, nobody is going to like seeing, not going to buy into bad quality floors. So it wouldn't take much to turn the industry off it, or to turn the public off it. And I don't think it's an overstatement to say that like works have really raised the bar of what's being delivered out there, because there was no one teaching anyone anything. Like I think the quality being delivered around the country helped keep it in play, and I don't see it's not going anywhere. Like it's extremely, I feel I get a little bit annoyed when people expect so much from it. Like in supermarkets, it's a very tough environment for a floor to hold up in, with spills that are left on the floor from when they drop on the floor at 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. when the cleaners come in. And I don't see any other floor finish with like a zero maintenance program, or they strip it and reseal it if it's vinyl. Polished concrete gets nothing. We probably sold it that way too. Like, you never need to maintain it. It's good for sales, but I would. But when I look at it in all the non-food environments, like, JB Hi-Fis that we've did 15 years ago, they look the same today.
Yeah.
Which, I think it's, fantastic.
Well, Mark, you started in this industry 20 years ago.
I did, actually. Wow, that's 2004.
Yeah, so you can certainly say that I've seen those floors we did back then, and I know that they last. And I guess if you're involved in large platform retail, it'd be hard to look past this product, wouldn't it? From a cost perspective, durability.
Yeah.
Any of the other alternatives that you mentioned before, they seem expensive.
Yeah, and there's no downside. I can't see a downside to it.
How does the future look for ProGrind from here?
Good, I think.
Is there anything that you're allowed to tell us, or is there, Chris did allude to some things on the horizon in his podcast. Can we squeeze anything out of you?
No. But we definitely don't stop looking at other flooring solutions for concrete. So it's not a one-trick pony. Like, we think we've got a lot of knowledge to bring, and we'll keep it as vague as that. But we'll keep delivering what we're doing now, which is what we love to do. Yeah.
Terrific. Mark, this podcast has been about 44 years in the making. Held me as a baby. Not actually my brother, but pretty much as good as family. And working in the family business together. So I want to thank you for coming in, sharing the story and shedding a bit of light on what you do. And I hope that for our listeners, it's been enjoyable and enlightening. So thank you very much for coming and sharing with us.
Thank you for having me, and thanks for the recommendation that I didn't know about to move into the project manager.
I expect to check in the mail.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark.
All right. Thanks, Josh.
This show is proudly supported by Works Plus. Works Plus brings total solutions to all concrete grinding and polishing contractors to make it totally work for their daily operations. We hope you've enjoyed this show. Make sure to tune in each week where we're going to dive deep into all things related to concrete grinding and polishing. We're here to help you so that you can boost your outcomes on the floor.